All right.
Devin, I did not get Oasis tickets.
Did you try and not get them, or did you not try?
What I did was they went on sale at 9 a.m. UK time, which is 3 a.m. our time, and I set my alarm for 2:50 p.m.
Okay, so you tried to try.
I tried to try.
And I'm glad you started here because why do I care about Oasis?
Says the man in the Manchester City jersey.
I mean, that's a separate issue. That connection. I'm talking about the band Oasis. I'm not talking
Yep.
about the
Yep.
Gallagher brothers and their love for.
Why do you, Benny, need to care about Oasis? Okay.
Obviously, I don't need to care.
No, you don't need to, but of course you do. Of course you do. Because you're friends with two mid-40s white guys. Oasis were the alpha band of a pretty big movement of rock and roll in the 90s, known as Britpop. One of the fastest selling like debut albums of all time. Like their first two albums were like some of the best albums of the 90s. You know, like they played to like, 250,000 people at a time, always in the tabloids. And as Devin and I discussed the other day, it felt like the Oasis came to prominence at a time when the internet was like still very new. And it felt like Oasis were the first like postmodern rock band, or sort of like meta rock band, where they knew they were a rock band and they knew that there were expectations of them as a rock band and as rock stars. And they knew that they had the eyes of the world upon them. And those people also had the expectations of them as rock stars. And so it became this sort of like feedback loop where like they could behave a way and see it reflected back to them in the tabloids and the early internet in like real time. That relationship made them feel bigger than any other band at the time. And all of this started, this is sort of the next big like rock wave after like grunge kind of ended. And it's interesting because like Oasis and Nirvana never really overlapped.
And they famously did not like grunge. Correct?
I don't think Oasis liked anything to this day. They don't like each other. They like the music that they made, and they will tell you all day long about how great their music is and where it stands in the pantheon of rock. And I think like if anything, they're great, but they're also like not as good as they think they are. There are a number of other good rock bands, legendary great rock bands from England that Devin and I would probably put well above Oasis. And I'm not sure Oasis would put those bands above Oasis.
Devin?
I agree with all that. I think they drew so heavily from the Beatles, who I'm a huge fan of, and explicitly, I mean, Noel said something like, "Yeah, writing music is easy. You just take your favorite Beatles song and like switch the order of the chords." And I think they did that in the media too. And they took the irreverence and like adapted it to the 90s when you could push it a lot harder than the Beatles could push it. You know, John Lennon made a casual observation, not a celebration, that they were bigger than Jesus, and got crucified for it.
Even
But
I know that one.
Like Noel Gallagher would have said, we're bigger than everybody but the Beatles, including Jesus.
So they are good. They're very good. They're great.
I think they're great. I
Great.
don't think they're legendary. In terms of all time, let's say in all time British rock bands, they're probably B tier, and then there's A tier and S tier above them.
Okay.
I feel like they did a couple things exceptionally well. They packaged sort of anthemic rock with lyrics that kind of don't matter
Nah.
but are very palatable. It's like if, people go at Coldplay for being like the easy listening of rock, and I think that's fair. Oasis is like the easy listening of harder rock, right? Like Champagne Supernova, you don't have to work to enjoy that song the way you do like Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody, instant hit, crazy hit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a hard song. It asks a lot of you to play
Yeah, it's like a
along.
sphinx of a song.
Yeah, that's right. Champagne Supernova is like,
There's nothing there.
right. It's
There's
for the
nothing there but
elevator.
vibes. It's all
Yeah.
vibes.
Yep. And they're great at those vibes. They're great at candy coated rock and seeming in the media like they're not candy coating anything. But all the biggest hits are candy coated. I mean, Wonderwall is such a brilliant throwaway of a song.
Equally about nothing.
That's the one. Like to this to because I knew we were going to talk about this. Literally, like the earlier today or yesterday, I went through like top 10 Oasis songs and went through them. I will say most of them I did not know. I obviously Wonderwall I knew, but when I just listen to it, it just always amazes me that sort of duality that we live in terms of like white culture and people of color culture. I will even say that because it's not really Latino culture. It was more like just being a person of color from New York,
Mm-hmm.
like that world. I mean, if you told me 5 years ago, like to name an Oasis song outside of Wonderwall, you could forget about it. There's nothing. Then I realized also the time that this was happening. The time when this is happening is like 94, 95.
Yes.
Like I am neck deep into the hip hop world. Like
Yeah.
this is Illmatic, this is Biggie, and it's also me getting into me being Latino and trying to go back and like, oh look, Hector Lavoe has all these songs I never heard about him. Oh my God, why is Celia Cruz? And then you start hearing one of her older bands. That Oasis thing is all happening at that same time, and I'm just like, I'm in another world. But I think it's awesome. Like I always because I just know Noah. I don't know Noah, excuse me. Oh, from the brothers, just because they love City so much, and like it's always weird to go. Oh yeah, and they're like one of the most influential bands in the world.
I mean, there's such a amazing musical like history in Manchester, but City also have Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart that they play in the
Right.
stadium, which
That's
I
right.
love. Although I was reminded earlier when Spurs played Newcastle, St. James's Park was singing "Spurs Are Falling Apart" again to us to the tune of "Love Will Tear Us Apart."
Ugh.
Thank you, Joy Division.
I think that's the cue, my friend. Last time we did this, it went downhill from here. So let's pick up the energy, boys. It's
No,
not
I'm high
it's not
energy.
over.
I'm ready to talk about this.
Okay.
I think. I guess
You
we
want,
can get it over with first.
do you want to start? You want to start with you guys?
Okay. Just let's
I have thoughts. I have
for
thoughts.
posterity, Spurs go to their house of horrors. One of their one of their probably several house of horrors.
That's everybody's household. Like it's a tough, difficult place to win.
St. James's Park, yeah.
Difficult place to win.
We don't love going to St. James's Park. Spurs go, they dominate pretty much for 90 minutes. All the stats are in Spurs' favor. Shots on goal, corners, the whole passes completed, whole thing.
Time spent in the other half.
Mhm.
All of it.
Touches.
Newcastle 2, Spurs 1.
And only an own goal. Only an own goal. All
Yeah,
that,
like
all that,
yeah,
all
not a
that
pretty
possession, all
goal.
the shots, and only an own goal.
We've now seen 3 Spurs matches. Match 1, we draw a newly promoted side. I mean, not just any newly promoted side. It's Leicester. Give them their respect. But we draw a newly promoted side.
And
Um,
suffocated them in the first half.
yep, we look great.
Absolutely suffocated them.
Look great in the first half. Didn't score any goals. We go out there against Everton, and look, we'll get to Everton. But we go out there
Whoa.
against Everton and blow them away in the first half and blow them away in the second half. And with the exception of like maybe like a 10-15 minute spell in the second half where Everton looked a little scary, Spurs dominate from beginning to end. And we think, here we go. This is Ange Ball. We're going to start to look like this more often than not. And then we go to Newcastle, and it's basic. Is it? And I'm going to ask Devin this first. Is it the first match all over again? Or is it we looked great, but we lacked a striker because both of our strikers were on the bench, and like this is why we got Solanke, and this is why we have Richarlison, and with those guys in the match, maybe it's a different story, or like what do you think we're looking at here?
Yeah, it's a good and hard question. I mean, there's a couple things. You called it a house of horrors, and yeah, it is a hard place to come away with a win. But Newcastle have given us this is the best we played against Newcastle in years, right?
We could be 5-0 last time we went there.
Yeah, something like that. It was there was a 6-2 and a 4-0.
I
Like
can't even.
Yeah,
I
so
feel like
on the one
Isak had like
hand
4 goals before the half last time we played them.
yeah, that's right. So we actually looked a lot better than we have against them. We, I think, looked better than we did against Leicester. We looked compelling compared to the Everton performance. We just could not finish, could not
Mhm.
make anything of opportunities. And that's a pretty classic pattern for us under Ange. It's like we get all the way there, we don't score. I don't feel as bad as I did after Leicester. I don't feel as bad as I could because I think we are putting something together. It's clear that there have been commonalities across all three matches where it's like we look when we're good like the same good team.
Mhm.
And even last August, when we were on top of the world, I don't think that was true. I think we looked good in different ways every match. And it was like, oh, we're figuring stuff out. We're piecing things together. We look good in the same way. This team is clearly trained together.
Mhm.
They've found chemistry, even with new folks like Odebear contributing in the same way every match. Without Van de Ven, we lack some of the pace we usually have to like get back to the line when we're playing 8 guys forward. And yeah, without Solanke and Richarlison, like neither of them has really proven themselves this year. I wouldn't say Richarlison had fully proven himself last year, but
Sure.
they're going to be threats if they're there. And lacking those threats, people can close down Kulusevski a bit more, make him sloppy on his passing. Son, I thought did well, but wasn't finding the support he had against Everton. So yeah, I don't feel as bad about it as I could have.
Just to update what you guys said, last three games at St. James's Park, 6-1, 4-0, 2-1
Hmm.
this week.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
great. We're a much improved team. Things are looking up for Tottenham Hotspur.
What surprises me though, like I have the stats up: 20 shots on goal,
Yep.
six on target,
Yep.
66 possession, and
Yep.
500 passes
Mhm.
compared to 261. Like there's no way
And our
that's
pass
not
completion rate was like way high. Not only were there more
that's not
passes, our pass
that's two
completion
two. Has to
percentage
be
was
two
higher.
two. That you have to finish that game 2-2
Yep.
at that minimum. There probably should be 3-2, but
We could have had 5. I mean, if you look at how many chances we created, because the thing is, so the own goal, right? It's not how we want to score ideally. But what happened is we cluttered that box so
under
Mhm.
pressure.
thoroughly. We created constant pressure, constant shooting. The ball's going to ping pong around and sometimes it'll go in. You
I think
know,
that's a feature, not a bug.
yeah,
That's a feature of Ange Ball, and if I remember correctly, I think we led the league in own goals forced last season too. Like we play a style of ball where the ball can go in the net off of the opponent.
So here's my question. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Banjaball. Is this just the same team as last year?
I think there are a number of players who are a full season into the system now. Everybody played last year, including dudes who didn't play every game. People like Basuma and people like Sar. Van de Ven's been here for a year. Both of our backs, Udagi and Poro, have been playing in the system for a year. And when we throw in people like Wilson Odebear, who's a totally different kind of winger than we've had so far, when you throw in Solanke, who's a real striker, we haven't had a real striker in this system. When you throw in true center back depth, and we have these new kids in the midfield in Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall, who are going to be like real difference makers, probably before like the holidays, with more opportunities to play because we're playing in Europe this year, and Europa League means more games. Like we said a couple of episodes ago, I don't know that the result is going to be meaningfully different. I think we could jump from fifth to fourth. I don't think we could go much higher than that. I think something would have to go kind of sideways with Liverpool for us to make it to third. But I think the team gets better. I think the philosophy gets more sound. I think everybody believes it. I think people are on board. These last 2 transfer windows for us were about kind of getting the last groups of players out from the last few regimes who were doing their best in Ange Ball, but who were never gonna make the grade and who are certainly never gonna start, if not be part of the squad.
Is this style ever going to produce a top three team? Just today, like you probably lost it because you were running a high line, and you play one of the highest lines in the league, and
we're
it's
not going to stop
always,
either.
and yeah, it's not going to stop. And whatever, that's he's gonna live and die by it. But you are going to die by it, and you died by it today because I mean Newcastle really didn't have anything.
Let's move on.
There were other teams. There's a team that Oasis is pretty fond of.
Let's
They
get
they
this over
uh
with.
they
We don't, because I mean, it's
well
just
don't
like,
don't do that.
no, no,
Don't
no,
don't
no,
don't
because
don't
like
do that. No,
if we
I don't like
if
your
we
tone.
feel like we need to
I don't like your
savor,
tone.
if we need to like really like just like take little tiny sips of every city win, like we're gonna be here forever, like for every episode. Like there's another city win where
Yes.
Erling Haaland had another hat trick. It's gonna happen again. It's already
Again,
happened before. Like we're in the third game of the
second.
season. This is not even the first time it's happened.
Is your second warning about the tongue? Third time? You don't want to see the
Card.
third time.
Third time it's a card.
I'm really surprised at how good we look this early on. I thought it would be more struggling, more trying to grit through wins, 2-1s, that kind of thing. The first two games, I just thought it would be more difficult. But they are playing like we're playing. We're playing like mid-season kind of good right now, and we don't have our full roster. We don't have any. We don't have three important players, and we're just still just playing, and we lost Alvarez. But Holland right now, what him not playing in the Euros, maybe that motivate him, but he's. Whew.
You guys look terrifying. Like already terrifying. And I agree. I thought it was going to be like, yeah, right, like it's a little bit of a hangover. We won 19 Premier Leagues in a row. Maybe we're going to get off to a slow start this year. Maybe we don't want it as much as we did. But dude, and yeah, like dude, guys missing, new pieces, the charges hanging over everything. Is the last year of Pep, like, is he going to stick around? But man, like, you're right. Like, West Ham did not stand a chance in that game. And there were like long stretches where it just the ball just like never crossed midfield at
No,
all.
and there was no threat at all. Look, Antonio sucks. Jared Bowen is sometimes dangerous. They were neutralized and they could not do anything. And that press, that little city press that we do at the end, where Holland lets you complete the first pass and then instantly comes and blocks you off, and then everybody flows to that way. Another 4 minutes of possession. Again, I'm just saying, Rodri's not even here. Our best, in my opinion, our second best player is not even there.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Foden is not even playing. Kyle Walker is not playing. John Stones is not playing. Like
You not only haven't played your best 11, you maybe haven't played your best 7 yet.
Like, how many hat tricks can somebody have in a season, do you think? Like, could he get to
keep
7,
scoring.
8 just this year?
He's on track for like 25 hat tricks, I think, this year. If my math,
I mean, you got 2 and 3
math is
matches,
correct.
right?
Yeah. I think that holds. I want to read a couple quotes that were on the broadcast today. About
please read the one that I sent
about Manchester United. John Champion said, "There's a slight mutinous air to the place." When I believe it was right when they came back from the first half, from halftime, a halftime that saw Casemiro get subbed off
and
and then
possibly have left the stadium.
left the stadium. So we'll see what's up with Casemiro. The other quote that I wanted to read, and this I believe was after Onana basically kicked a goal kick ball just straight sideways out of bounds. That's not a standard that you can accept at this club. Now, I famously, I think at this point on this podcast, said I might be the only person alive who's scared of Manchester United this year. I did not know how wrong I would be. Like, I didn't realize how bad things were going to be already at United. Like, they got destroyed today by Liverpool in their own house again.
They got Southampton coming up.
They got an easy one, but
Is
that's the
anything
thing.
easy at this point? When you're United?
Southampton is looking for their first win.
That's right. And you'd say, oh, this is a must win for Man United. you wouldn't have had to say this is a must-win for Man United in seasons past, right?
Not
It's
already.
like to be looking at Southampton in week 4
You
and think
cannot come out of that game
you don't know
without
what's
3.
going to happen. Yep.
It's the
Has to be 3.
7:30. It's the early game on Saturday morning at Southampton.
Oh god. If they draw or lose, they'll have that like 3-day media cycle.
That'll be the first story on every studio show. If they draw, is Eric Ten Hag going to last the weekend?
We're not talking about Everton. We're not talking about Southampton. We're talking about the equivalent of the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, England's team. They are the team. The team.
Long
And
time
you
now.
tell me what their identity is and tell me what player do they have. There's no way that you're telling me here's Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, guys. All right, it's us, Manchester United.
Ride or die.
There's a difference between who do they have and who should they have given the names on the roster, right? There's a lot of names on the roster that should be guys playing together, and not one of them is working out.
It's almost like they have like Chelsea disease, where like you look at the roster and you think, I guess a question is like, are these guys dudes, or are they dudes because they're on Manchester United and we have the expectation that they're
That's what
supposed
I
to be
think.
dudes?
That's what I think. We're the whole Marcus Rashford thing. Like I feel sorry for him, especially for what happened to him when he missed those PKs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But that question has been answered, unfortunately, for him. Like there's nothing there. There's nothing there. He is not Ronaldo. He is not Mbappe. He is not Phil Foden. He is not Saka. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. And they are a club in which, at this point, they should have found that superstar that was like, despite bad management, still plays great and still scores 20 goals.
You brought up the Cowboys. I'll throw the Yankees in this conversation too. Like these giant, iconic sports organizations that transcend their sport and attract global attention, that play in these like legendary venues in their sport. And the Cowboys haven't won a playoff game in 30 years. The Yankees went from 2008 to the last few years without any real success. We're seeing United go through this cycle where, yeah, sure, they're Manchester United, but those names that you mentioned, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, any of those guys, from the, like, we're reaching back pretty far. And to pull a quote from another American team, it's like, Larry Bird's not walking through that door. Like Roy Keane's not walking through that door at
Correct.
United. And like they have to somehow find a new identity for this team, because like Ferguson's not coming back. He's in the even though he's in the stands every goddamn game, like he's not going to come back and coach the team. One of the points that Gary Neville made is that like it wasn't Van Gaal and it wasn't Mourinho and it wasn't Ole and it wasn't Ralph Rangnick and it's maybe not Eric Ten Hag, and it's like, well, what's the problem here? All of those people that we mentioned won in other places. Some of them won everything in other places. But no matter who you've put in that seat after Ferguson, it's like not the right guy. Like, what are we at a certain point? Like, what are we talking about?
How many do you have to go through before you stop thinking that's possible?
Before you
Right?
just hang it up, close up
Yeah.
shop. No
Yeah.
more,
Just,
no
you
more
know what?
Manchester
This
United.
was a great team. We're done.
We're
Yeah.
selling them to Phoenix.
I'm gonna pass.
Right.
Pass. Forfeit.
We're going to try American football. It's
Yeah.
getting big in London. Maybe it could get big in Manchester.
Rashford would be a great outside wide receiver.
Oklahoma City United. What happened to Everton this weekend? I don't think I've ever. I mean, I've been watching Premier League forever, man. But like, 2-0, and so I didn't watch the game live. I mean, Benny, it sounds like you were watching live, but I watched live. I watched the highlights, and the
Go-
highlights, Benny, they should have been up 5-0, 6-0.
It was a goal rush watch for me. Even when he would cut back and forth, you could tell there was like this Everton dominance. They're at Goodison Park. They score first. They score another.
They're
They're at
flying.
home.
They're flying. Like they honestly, they went up 2-0. Between the second Everton goal and the first Bournemouth goal, Everton could have scored 4 more times.
But they didn't. but they didn't do it. And under no circumstances can you ever give up 3 goals in 10 minutes.
I remember 4 years ago when we beat Leicester on those 2 late goals from Steven Bergwijn that happened after the 90th minute when we were down 2-1. I thought at the time, like, that's about as crazy as the sport gets, right? But to be down 2-0 and win with, like, not crazy time added on, I don't understand. I don't understand how it even happens. When I started watching Premier League, I feel like there were a number of attempts to like try to like get into football for real, and the first like 4 didn't take. And somewhere in there was like, well, what team am I going to support? And Everton was like, I feel like Everton made the finals of the teams that I was going to choose. And I'm not going to say that like, I or both of us, either of us, dodged a bullet by picking Spurs because obviously it has been an easy ride. But man, am I happy I didn't pick Everton. We have Labor Day tomorrow into the international break next week.
Yep.
What are we watching? What are we doing? Any plans?
Should we watch a movie? Should we watch a movie and talk about a movie next week?
Like a film?
Yeah.
Like a new movie or like an old movie? Are we gonna go back?
I don't know.
Citizen Kane? Like,
Yeah, like
what are your thoughts?
Yojimbo? Like
I got no plan. I'm just saying if we got to watch something and talk about something, we don't have sports. Also, I don't watch other sports. So
How do you feel about the SEC? The SEC this year, Devin?
if you ask me about the SEC, I'm going to start talking to you about the Securities and Exchange Commission. Manchester City plays Alabama. Adjacent weekends. First weekend, English football.
Mhm.
Second weekend, American football. Who loses worse?
I mean, both teams are going to get blown out. The problem with American football is that there's so much specialization that doesn't exist in European football. Where like if you put athletes on the field, you're going to get embarrassed, but you're not going to get hurt. And I feel like if you put anybody up, like the biggest dude, put Holland or like Kyle Walker up against, forget about an offensive lineman, even like a middle linebacker will put Erling Haaland on his ass. Any middle linebacker,
I guarantee you,
like an
the
average middle linebacker at a like a second division college school, would knock the wind out of Erling Haaland.
the third string running back at Alabama is such a good athlete. If you throw out some of the skill athletes, like they could defend. They could probably defend. They don't have any ball skills, so there would be no offense to speak of. But they could run up and down and sort of still be
Yep.
there. But I mean, you line up Kyle Walker on somebody like just even trying to defend a pass route, like he's done.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about how fast Kyle Walker is, or how fast Mickey Van de Ven is, or how fast Kylian Mbappe is, or whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, any wide receiver on Ohio State is faster than everybody in the Premier League. There are 74 high school wide receivers in Louisiana who are faster than anybody who's ever played for Manchester City.
And they're 6'4".
Yep.
And they're 6'4". And they probably bench 225 like 20 times.
What's their first touch like, though? That's the problem.